Two Samsung OLEDs, two different prices, two different coatings, two different panels all together. But the number one question a lot of you guys still have is how much of a difference really is there between the S90D and the S95D from Samsung? Let's start with the design differences. They both have a central stand design, although the S95D is a true pedestal stand, which is going to be metal, and it's a nice stand overall. The S90D stand is two legs with a cover that makes it look like a metal pedestal stand, although it's more of an artificial pedestal stand as it's just 2 feet with a stand cover over it. One big difference is going to be where your HDMI ports sit on the TV. For the S90D, they are in a traditional manner on the back of the TV. But with the S95D, they are going to be on an external One Connect box. And this One Connect box is going to have one wire that hooks up to the back of the TV. And the actual power for the TV is going to be on this One Connect box as well. So there's no power cable on the actual TV. It's going to be on the One Connect box. So speaking of those HDMI 2.1 ports, they are both going to be all four HDMI 2.1 ports capable of 144 Hz gaming if you have a compatible PC. Now, one big design difference is going to be the screen coating itself. So Samsung on the S95D has a glare-free technology, what they call it, and it's arguable whether or not it reduces glare or not. I mean, you can kind of see on the video that I did with the S95D, it has its moments. I think in a sunlit room, it's definitely going to do the job quite well, and it's going to be a good solution for a lot of people. Although there is some rooms that might not like this design. And now the S90D, on the other hand, is going to have a glossy coating. So just pretty much your regular glossy OLED screen coating, and it does have some reflections. And it's not as bad as the past OLED designs, although if you are going to have problems with light, that's probably going to cause you some problems as well. So I always recommend just light controlling your room. And if you light control your room, neither of these TVs are a problem in that regard. Plain and simple, that's the best way I could put it. If you light control your room, you are not going to have an issue with this. If you want to know more about it, I have 2 videos with the S95D talking in depth about this coating. I show plenty of examples of different lighting situations next to a glossy OLED. So check out that if you want to see it. With that out of the way, let's talk about picture quality because that's going to be the biggest thing that separates these two TVs. But before I do, if you guys are enjoying this video, please make sure you hit the like button on this video and help spread the video out to more people. And when you guys decide to buy your next TV, please consider using one of my affiliate links in the description below before doing so. Thank you guys so much for your support. Alright, now let's talk about picture quality. Let's start with picture clarity and sharpness. So in this department, they're pretty similar. Honestly, there's no difference in sharpness or clarity. They're using the same exact processor, so that's not a surprise to me. The only thing different between these two TVs in regard to the way that the processor works is they have a different tone mapping algorithm. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it's clear they are different in that regard, as highlights just seem to do a better job overall with the S95D. Sometimes I feel like the S90D is leaving me with flat highlights overall, and I don't know what it is about it, but it is giving me that feeling a lot of times where the S95D is going to be delivering me really nice, beautiful highlights, but the S90D just leaves them a little bit flat. Like it's an aggressive tone mapping algorithm on the S90D. Which brings me to my next point. You have to talk about how much these TVs separate. Now, when you are looking at content side by side, it is clear to me that the S95D just stands out above the S90D. It is really just not close, in my opinion, in a lot of scenes. And I didn't really notice this with the S95C versus the S90C last year. So there's a significant gap this year in terms of HDR impact. And a lot of people ask, how bright is the S95D? Well, I've put it side by side next to the G4, and at times it trades blows with the G4. Sometimes it looks brighter than the G4, and sometimes the G4 looks brighter than it. It really depends on the scene, and it depends on how the TV is going to tone map that scene. I would say the S90D is closer to being compared to the S90C and the LG C4 because the LG C4 did see a little bit of a bump this year. And yes, I will be doing that comparison as well, so make sure you stay tuned and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that. So when colors are involved with the S95D versus the S90D, I think that the S95D does look brighter and punchier overall, and I think that's due to the 3rd generation panel that Samsung is using for this QD OLED. Now the S90D I'm talking about is a QD OLED, but there are some WOLED S90Ds. It depends on the region you're in, and Samsung doesn't tell you these things up front. They'll never tell you what panel they're using, what panel generation they're using. It's just kind of a big headache, and I made a video talking all about that. Definitely watch this afterwards if you need to know if your S90D is going to be QD OLED or WOLED. But I want to be clear, the TV I'm talking about today is a QD OLED Generation 2 panel for the S90D. Alright, now let's talk about movies and TV shows and how that is presented to you on these TVs. So when you're viewing content that is graded high, you will see that the S95D is the more capable TV. But when you're watching content that is graded at a conservative level and more lower, like a lot of movies out there, if you are going to be in something like filmmaker mode or even movie mode, for the most part, they will look fairly similar across the board. There's not going to be a huge jump between the two in regards to brightness or picture quality. But if you watch something that's graded at a much higher level, then you are going to experience a difference with the S95D being brighter than the S90D. However, if you don't like watching TV like that and you use the modes like dynamic or standard, then you are going to see that the S95D can pump out more brightness than the S90D in that regard. So overall, the S95D is the brighter, more punchier TV no matter what situation you put it in. With all that said, the S90D looks like a really good TV. There is one issue with the S90D is in certain high graded content, you will have to reduce the contrast to 45 or 48 depending on what your tolerance level is to clipping. Otherwise, you will see some blown out highlights. So just keep that in mind with the S90D. The S95D, on the other hand, does not have this problem with the movie and filmmaker mode. But for my demonstration, just to show you how it is out of the box, I kept it at 50 so that it was fair. So keep in mind you might see some blown out highlights from time to time from the S90D, and that is why. But reducing contrast does greatly lower HDR impact. Now in regards to out of the box color, they're both going to be set in HDR to BT 2020 by default, which is amazing. This is something that I was hoping that they did for a while now, and now we're getting really good out of the box color for both of these TVs. I liked it a lot from what I saw. I thought the S95D looks better out of the box for color, but I'm not somebody who's going to judge accuracy. I'm just saying what looks best to my eyes personally. I like the S95D a little bit better. If you're wondering about the overall accuracy, definitely hit up my boy Classy Tech Calibrations. He's one of the best on YouTube when it comes down to calibration and accuracy in general. He doesn't sponsor me in any way. He's just a good buddy of mine and he teaches me a lot. So shout out to Classy. Go check his channel out. All right, now let's talk about gaming, because gaming is going to be something I know a lot of you guys are wondering about. Both TVs do a really great job with gaming, but once again, the S95D does separate here, and it looks like the better gaming TV overall. I will say that though it doesn't separate as much as outside of game mode, I noticed better highlights overall, I noticed better color overall, and just there's so much that the S95D does that the S90D doesn't do when they are side by side. The S90D also does clip some highlights like it does outside of game mode, so you have to set the contrast to 45 if you want to avoid that, or 48. But again, you're losing HDR impact when you do that, so that's a knock on the S90D until they fix it. And I realize that some of you guys might not even know what I'm talking about when I'm saying that it clips highlights. Just know that you're losing information in the image when that happens. Take clouds, for example. If there's sunlight coming through the clouds, maybe you want to see the details of the clouds instead of just a bright white spot that is going to blow out the whole entire sky. That is going to be what I'm talking about here. On the S95D, we don't experience that at all. But on the S90D, I experience that quite a bit unless you lower the contrast. And that is with the HDR set at 900 or 1000. If you set it at 900, it does clip a little bit less, but it still does clip. And I think it's more capable of a 900 or 1000. And I think that this is something that the S90D desperately needs a update for its game mode. Also, unlike outside of game mode, both the S90D and S95D are in the DCI P3 color space by default, so you're going to have to change this to BT 2020 and set it with some specific settings, which I will give you in a future video. Now, the S95D is going to be set to 1500 nits on the HDR setup menu if you are going to be activating game mode basic, which I do recommend activating. I put this side by side next to the G4 using HGIG, and it uses the same console settings at 1500 nits. I thought they both looked very similar in that regard, so it seems to be doing what it's supposed to be doing for the most part if you care about that. Now, I'm going to have a separate video talking about gaming for both of these TVs, and I'm going to talk about how to set them up for game mode even further. But in regards to gaming, they're both really great gaming TVs, but the S95D definitely gets the edge once again in game mode. All right, now let's get on to the buying advice. And the biggest question I got was, is the S95D worth the price difference over the S90D? I would say yes, it is. It is absolutely worth the price difference. Now, is it worth the price difference over the S90C? For a lot of people, I would say no. But for some people, if you just want the best of the best, I would say yes, because it's between this or the G4 for TVs that are releasing this year in regards to OLED. Now, you do also have the A95L out there as well, so you can consider that one in the mix. And it is going to come down to probably those three TVs for what TV should you buy. Maybe you could throw the Bravia 9 in there. I don't know. I got to see it again next to an OLED. But yeah, that remains to be seen. So if you're in the market for a S90D right now and you can afford the S90D right now, I mean, it does depend on when you're watching this video. But if you're watching at launch and you got launch prices, wait a little bit longer and grab the S95D instead, because I think there is a significant gap here. I didn't say this last year with the S95C compared to the S90C. There wasn't that gap. This year, there's a gap. And the S95D is very much in contention for one of the best TVs of the year. And I put it up against one of the other best TVs of the year, the G4. Check that video out right here. Or if you want to see the C4 next to the S90D, check that one out. Please subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.